Hello, Grandmasters. Mike from the WCA. I want to show you something that came up in our Week 4 class the day before Sunday, the Saturday in White Plains at the Merrimack Avenue School. We had two WCA students play each other in a real tournament, and they kind of walked themselves into that fried liver attack that we all hear about. And I want you guys to kind of see how grandmasters handle the position, or at least one variation, and then show you what the students did and how it got black into trouble. So Andrew had the white pieces against Elena, and these two kids have been featured in WCA videos in the past. Let me quickly take you through the opening. So Andrew starts with E4, E5 by Elena, and the typical Italian game or gioco piano setup. Except here, black has an option, and Elena chose the much sharper knight f6. And we say it's sharper because white gets an opportunity to really liven things up with the move knight g5, and that kind of puts a lot of pressure on this pawn. I hope you guys can all see this mouse cursor here. Here on f7, black has a problem, and there are two moves in this position. One is this actual bizarre, let me just show you with the mouse pointer here, is this bizarre bishop c5, which is called the Traxler Gambit, where white will give away the pawn in f7, or black rather, for all sorts of compensation. But we'll do that another time. But the main move in this position is the one Elena played, and you kind of have to know this if you're going to play the move knight f6, because if you allow this knight to come to g5 here, you have to be prepared. If you're not prepared, you're going to get in big trouble. So Elena kind of played the right move here, and after white takes with the pawn, here she makes a mistake. She played in the game here knight takes pawn, which is a problem if you really don't know this variation. And it turns out even if you do, you're going to come under a lot of pressure. By taking on d5 with the knight, and it looks logical, right? It's like, why not take the pawn? The problem is now white can sacrifice this knight on f7, and when they do, you pretty much have to take here because your queen and rook is attacked. Your king will take, and then what Andrew does is he plays the move queen f3, and this is the classic fried liver attack. You'll notice that the queen is hitting the king with check, and at the same time, it's attacking the knight here on d5. So black is in trouble here if you don't play the move king e6, which is the main move here, because you have to get out of check and protect your knight. I'll tell you though, it is really not a comfortable position for black to play. You are up a piece, and you know, it seems like you have enough material for the inconvenience of having your king on e6, but I would not want to play this position as black, especially at the scholastic level, because white is already set to castle. They're going to push this pawn here to d4 at some point. This knight can come to c3, put more pressure here, and black basically just has to sit and defend and hope that white doesn't attack properly. I don't really think you want to do that with the black pieces. So let me show you the main line here, or one of them, and give you a sample of what a grandmaster did in this position. So let's go back. Let's go to the move knight g5, the initial attack on this square here on f7. So Elena's choice of d5 was correct, and white usually takes the pawn. But one way for black to play is to play this move knight a5. And what that does, besides hitting the bishop, is it doesn't allow the sacrifice on f7. So what is black accomplishing besides that? Well, hitting the bishop, white has to do something. You don't want to lose the bishop for nothing here, so I'll just walk you through the main line. So bishop to b5 check, and it turns out black can be the one to give up material and kind of say to white, you know what, I like playing these kinds of positions too, so I'm actually going to give you a pawn, and I want to see how you handle that. So the move here is c6, getting out of check. White takes the pawn, and here you take back with your pawn. And by doing that, you hit your the white bishop. And in the game I want to show you, it was played by Grandmaster Arthur Bisquire, who many-time New York State champion. He's been around a long time. I would suggest you guys just Google him and learn about what Arthur has done for chess, especially here in the States. But let me show you the move that was played in the game. His opponent played bishop e2, and Rusa in the class brought out something real important. And this kind of lecture is really geared toward the 4 o'clock class, even though the material came from the 2 and 12 o'clock classes. And why am I saying that? This is Grandmaster chess, and there are some concepts here that are not so easy to understand unless you put the time in. So if I say something in the video that seems, I don't know, difficult or hard to understand, or maybe you don't kind of buy into what I'm saying, pause the video, either make a note of it or, bring a question into class. Don't just watch this sitting back, kind of get involved. So that's why I'm saying, this is really a 4 o'clock level and higher, this material. So at first sight, it looks a little bizarre, right? The black knight on the side of the board, the white knight in black's territory all by itself. So that's the reason why black goes in for this. And Rusa pointed out in the class that if you look at these 2 bishops here, and let me highlight them here, you see that diagonal that I opened up, and I'll show you one on this side as well. Come on, let's go, mouse cursor, wake up. There we go. If we asked you, are those bishops developed? I'm not so sure what you would say. Grandmasters tend to think, and strong masters, that once a bishop has been opened up by a pawn, the piece is developed because it can attack lots and lots of squares. I mean, you can just see in that position what those diagonals are showing you. So black, even though they're down a pawn here, they have a lot of activity already. So let me show you what happened in the game. Once the bishop retreated, black plays the move h6, which is going to knock the white knight back home. It really can't do anything in black's territory. So white goes back, and then black continues to disturb white's position. He doesn't want white to play his normal moves like castle and d4 and get the pieces out, so he plays the move e4, and that attacks the knight. So obviously you're not going to castle and give up a piece. What to do with the knight? Well, white charges forward again, and the knight ends up on e5, and then a nice developing move, bishop d6, and telling the knight, now where you're going. It doesn't look like you have a way out, but white does. And this is a very, very common idea. When you have a knight that's attacked in the middle of the board, you can move one of your pawns to support it, but don't forget the en passant rule, which comes up in this game. A lot of players here will move this d pawn up to d4, but in this particular game, black chose to move the f pawn, which is kind of double-sided. Now, hopefully you guys all know about the en passant rule because it takes place here. Black takes the pawn, and by doing that, you'll see the bishop is now attacking our friend here again. So white takes back with the knight to get out of danger. Now, let me go back and explain to you again with this mouse cursor. You'll see that by moving the f pawn, white did protect the knight, but once it disappeared, you can make the argument that the absence of the f pawn helps black too. I'm pretty sure I know what white wanted to do. Once they castle, there's going to be a rook here, right, on the f1 square, and white's thinking, well, I'll activate my rook. But you have to remember the fact that by moving the f-pawn, you've opened up lots of squares around the king. So it's double-edged. It's not so clear that that's going to benefit you 100% as white. So what does black do? Very simple chess. Gets the king out of the center by castling, and white now, instead of castling or playing any other move, just has to continue with their development. They're really behind here. So they play d4. And here I like the way black played a lot. Very, very instructive. You'll notice, let's take black's position. Our opponent hasn't castled, and they're giving us an opportunity to kind of stir up trouble when our king is safe and our opponent's king is not. So how do you do that? Well, when you hear the expression stir up trouble, I want you to always think of pawn moves and pawn breaks, even pawn sacrifices, because that's what black does. Black plays the move c5, and by playing c5, hopefully you see it's going to ask white, well, what are you going to do about that pawn? So white decides to take it, thinking, okay, you'll take the pawn back, but I'm going to have a chance to trade queens with you. And once that happens, the fact that I'm behind in development might not be such a big deal because the queens are coming off the board, but it's not so clear. So black takes, they trade the queens, and black in this position is saying, okay, my queen is gone, but your king is still in the middle of the board. Black is saying to white also, what are you going to do about the fact that your pieces aren't out yet? And it seems on the surface that white's not going to have any problem. However, the demonstration of how black tells white, well, you're really behind and it's not easy for you to catch up, to me was very, very instructive. So bishop d2 makes perfect sense, attacks the knight. The knight hops back to c6. Knight c3, all nice developing moves. And then a pretty cool move here, knight g4. You'll notice that white cannot castle kingside, because by castling kingside, you would be kind of walking into check here. So that's illegal. But knight g4 tells white, you're not castling queenside either, because if you do, I have this little knight fork on f2. So it's an annoying move. After knight g4, white says, well, I don't have to castle. I can just come here and come after one of your bishops. Now, after bishop b6, you'll notice the bishop is doing the same job it was doing on c5. It's doing it from b6. And this is really instructive. I want you guys to pay attention to the pawn structure here. Black is still down a pawn, if my math is correct, but I want you to look at the two central files. Let's use the mouse cursor. The E file, and I want you to look at the D file. And after you look at those two files, I want you to look at the number of pawns that are on those two files. And your answer should be 0. And Rusa and I always tell the kids, please keep in mind the number of center pawns that are in a position, because without them, it tends to make the bishop pair extremely valuable. In this position, both teams have a bishop pair. So that would end up usually favoring the team that's ahead in development. But there's also another problem. The knights don't like when they're in positions without center pawns, because they don't have any anchors in the middle of the board. They don't have any support. So when they're sitting in the center, they can get attacked, and if there are no pawns there, then they're not protected. So if both teams have that problem, then you have to ask yourself which one of the team's bishops can support the knights. And you're going to see in this position that the black bishops are in a much better setup to support the black knights. And that little combination of bishop activity and knight support is really the main difference of how this game concluded. So let me show you the rest. H3, really natural move, kicking the knight out of white's territory, but black doesn't necessarily have to go all the way back. So he plays a really cool move. He plays knight to e3. And by doing that, I'll put a couple of highlights on you. The knight is preventing the king from castling because you can't castle through a check. And now you have the problem with white. Do I take that knight with my bishop here on d2? And that's a very, very difficult decision. If you do take it, you're giving black the bishop pair in a wide open setup. If you don't take it, you have to live with a knight on your 6th rank. So white decided that that knight was going to be too strong and makes the trade. So after it's done, that black bishop on e3, I don't know, what do you guys think? We say bishops are worth maybe a little bit more than 3 points. But how about here in this position? I don't know, ask the two rooks up here what that bishop is worth, and also the white king. So white plays bishop to d3, I guess kind of shutting out this file here. And it's also a sneaky move. You have to be, at the scholastic level, you have to be very careful that that bishop, you see, it's also taking away an escape square. And I'm not saying anything's going to happen right now, but I've seen so many games at the scholastic level end with some white rook getting to the back rank and black forgetting that they don't have this escape square because of this diagonal. Anyway, so black starts activating his pieces with threats. He plays rook b8, attacking the pawn here on b2, and you're telling white you could defend it with your pawn, your rook, sorry, but then you're turning your rook into a babysitter. If you defend it by moving the pawn, this is what white did, then I got you to at least make a couple of holes up here on the dark squares. You'll notice that black is the only player with a dark squared bishop. Does that mean anything right now? Not necessarily, but in the future, especially in endgame, if black has access to all these dark squares, it can only help him. So that's why rook b8 is a very useful move here. Okay, so, after b3, knight b4, and knight b4 is threatening to win a pawn by hitting this square twice, and king e2, attacking the bishop, and again, the same move. You just drop the bishop all the way back to b6, and you're controlling the squares from a distance. You know, don't forget the bishops are long-range pieces. So rook h to d1 is the old method of kind of challenging your opponent's good pieces. Here, this rook on d8 is controlling one of the only open files here, so why not challenge him on that? So bishop to b7, and all of a sudden white is starting to feel that there are tactics in the position. You have to be very careful. I mean, this bishop is protecting the knight. The bishop could be removed, even though the pawn could take back and protect the knight. You have to be very careful in these situations because it just creates tactical opportunities. So white plays it safe and drops back. And, please don't make trades like this in your games. See how the bishop here could take the knight on f2? When you have a bishop that's unopposed, that means there's no bishop on the other side that can fight you. Be very careful giving it up for a knight that doesn't have any support in the center. Unless there's a concrete tactical reason, don't do that. Just keep your bishop. It's really a stronger piece. So let's see what he did instead. He centralizes his knight, and now he's looking at some of these weak dark squares here and here, also on e3. Don't forget, because you have this bishop, you can actually put your knight in closer to white's position. So I think white felt that they were either a little confused or, I don't know, this is not an easy position for white to play. So now he moves the rook again to e1, and white just simply jumps in. That attacks the pawn here on g2, and our poor friend has to move again to protect it. Okay, simple chess, simple tactics. The rook goes to g1. It's totally out of play. Our opponent's king is in the middle of the board, so he plays rook e8. And you'll notice how just step by step he improves his bishops. He puts his rooks on open files. He improved his knight, putting it on e3, and black is just keeping up the pressure. White steps off that one, but now after d5, he kind of walked into another pin. You'll see this bishop up here attacking the rook, and the tactics are already starting to come into play. At this point, white was so tied up that he decided to just give away in exchange. That means rook for a minor piece by playing the move knight d1. The pressure was just too much, and in the game, the grandmaster actually did take the rook. I just want to show you something, and this is a lot easier for us to do. I don't remember what year this was played. It could have been, this was played a long time ago. But with computers today, you would look at a move like knight f4, and what does knight f4 do? I mean, come on, we can take a whole rook here, right, with a bishop, and that's a good exchange for us. But by keeping the bishop on the board and playing knight f4, now you're threatening, in case this rook goes now, grabbing another pawn. You're threatening to take the bishop and open up the king even more. There's all sorts of tactics that can happen, and you're telling white, hey, if I don't go for this exchange, I'm still keeping this bishop, and I'm going to make the argument that it's stronger than your rook. I don't even want that. So that would have been a possibility. You know, let's say the rook jumps out of the way now, and then you play a move like rook d8, the b rook, and every one of black's pieces is just all over white. So that's just a consideration, right? So let me just show you the end of the game. Back to this move, black decided, hey, you know, that is a rook. Let me take it, force a knight to the back row, and then I'm just going to keep coming forward. Come in with my knight and attack your bishop, and, you know, what are you going to do? I'm up in exchange. So g3, kick the knight, and black makes a trade. Now, don't forget that white has still has that extra pawn, but they are down a rook for a minor piece. Taking with the pawn keeps the king sheltered, but the pawn is now really weak, and then black lifts the rook. And these are important moves to play, these rook lifts, because they, as you can see, it has the opportunity to slide left and right, as well as keeping the pressure on the e-file. Okay, so white brought his knight back into the game. Rook d8, pressure on the pawn, so that would prevent you from moving your knight to this square, because you could just take it, and because of this pin you would lose something. So he decides to go to e2, and then after bishop a6, d4, there's just too much pressure on this position. Now you double rooks, hitting the knight there 3 times. It came into f4, and then after rook e3, you're starting to hit points in white's position. He played the move g4 to save the pawn, and then after this move, attacking the knight, white resigned. And I'm not going to go into too much detail as to why they resigned, but that knight really doesn't have any good squares. You know, you could try knight here, g to e2, and it looks like we can win. You know, we can win something with this move as a possibility, because if you take it, here, hang on 1 minute, folks. So if we take it, we could probably check. The king will move and then snap off the knight here. That looks like that would be pretty good. I think also after knight g2, we might even be able to just grab this pawn. And, you know, here white's in big trouble. Those 2 rooks are just dominating, the 2 knights out of play, and this poor guy in the corner never really got to say much. Okay, guys, let's call it a day. I hope you enjoyed the game, and we will see you next week. We are off for Mother's Day. Be nice to your moms, and you know, all that good stuff. See you soon.